Hello everyone, Ian Eliana here. Messy hair as usual, like that never changes. I'm an environmentalist, I'm a political analyst, and I did some soul searching after the last podcast because I started going on and on about how the fabric of America has broken down mostly because of schools. And I said, at least to myself, that I needed to do something about it. So I drafted a petition, change.org/save American students, because that's where all of the evils and wrongs of the world come from. They come from a bunch of children who go through this American education system and leave battered, emotionally bruised, emotionally scarred, sometimes physically scarred adolescents who can't make that jump to adulthood. Why? Because responsibility is never taught, responsibility is never assessed as a skill, and it is a skill. It's something that you have to practice and hone, you have to nurture it. And I don't feel like American schools in their present form do that. I think they do the opposite. Now, granted, it's a system where you can learn to be hyper aggressive and you can learn to be a bitch and you can learn to be a prick. You can learn how to be a spiteful, competitive person who will do anything to climb to the top. You can also, end up being, a brilliant musician, a brilliant artist. Hi, Clint. Because of all the torture you've been through. But I also start to think that when you torture a person, what do you expect to happen? I signed a petition because I'm all about petitions. I signed a petition for the Liam Payne bill that's going around England right now, where it says that if you're an artist, you should have a team of medical professionals that go on tour with you and are there for you, making sure that you're well rested, well nourished, and that you have somewhere safe to relieve your stress and to unburden yourself of emotional turmoil. And I don't talk about this enough. I wasn't really a huge fan of One Direction, and I understand that Harry Styles is the next coming of George Harrison. Liam Payne was a good musician too. He was someone who cared about his craft, cared about his art, and he lost his life because no one was there for him. Because he didn't have anyone to talk to, he didn't have anyone to say, you need a break. I know that it's difficult having, Louis Tomlinson and Niall Horan as bandmates who went on to successful careers, and you're out there with Quavo. But Strip It Down to Me was a brilliant song. I like that song. I like that song more than Watermelon Sugar, and I'm not afraid to fucking admit that. I was a huge Liam Payne fan. I found him sexy too. So the idea that he needed someone before One Direction to prepare him during One Direction for a life of entertainment, because no one prepares you for this business, and this business is just getting worse. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. I talk at length about how my leasing agency is just a front for some sort of Hollywood cult, because they locked me out of, and I'm just going to say they locked me out of my apartment because they did. And then I was homeless for a while and I was assaulted because of that. A hate crime was committed against me because they locked me out. And now, just today, once again, I have to go outside because my dog needs to relieve itself. And let me go back and say hello to some people. Hello, Agus. Hello, Big. Hello, Sandra. Hello, Manoj. Hello, War. Hello, Midwest. Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone today? And of course, hello, Clint, who was in here earlier. Just today, I noticed that the door is ajar for the front door of my building. Now, of course, because, I don't want just anyone wandering in, I closed the door behind me and my dog and I do our daily ablutions. Now, I come back and the door is locked, obviously. I try my key. My key doesn't even function in that door. Luckily, I still had another way to get in, or I would have been locked out of my apartment for a second time. And I'm just at this point that this really has to be my last week here because I can't go through another month, and I don't want to give them any more money, that's for sure, because it's just, you sick a dog on me, you lock me out my apartment, you leave filth in the hallways. I'm just surrounded by nasty people. It's not worth it. And I love how Californians are like, oh, well, why don't you move here? Why don't you move there? It's like, I'm sorry, but your state is nasty, filled with nasty people. And I say nasty people because you set fire to the forest, and I'll talk about that every single podcast because I don't understand how legally California sets that many fires and no one presses charges. There are no economic sanctions. Instead, it's pity me as a state that set fire to 5 forests and then set fire to San Diego. Pity me as a state, really. I don't know where to go from here because I am set on moving to Canada, but Canada is going through a blizzard right now. A blizzard. I don't even think it's safe to really fly. But I can't stay in California. California is trash. And when I was outside, I saw a giant bag of just dirty trash, just like on the sidewalk. People walk by, they weren't going to pick that up. I picked that up. And I felt gross doing it. And I just felt like, oh my God, look at me with my nice clothes. And I have to carry this giant bag of filth. But then I said, I'm doing something about it. I'm actually doing something for the community. The same community that stood there doing nothing when I was being assaulted. But I'm not them. I'm better than them. Because even through my anger, and I am angry at that entire community, and I will never forgive them for that. But even through my anger, I can just say, well, that sidewalk never really bothered me. That sidewalk, that land, that patch of dirt that you want to ignore because you think that it doesn't belong to you and that it's somebody else's problem. Well, it means something to me. Because I have to walk by it every day, it's a part of me. And that's how I feel about California. I hate California. The name of the podcast, I hate LA. Love me anyway. Because even though I hate California, I don't want to see it suffer. I don't want to see it turn into a giant landfill for people to dump on. It's a beautiful state if people just took care of it. Now, I know it's a little outlandish to say, everybody in Los Angeles, get your toothbrush out and, start brushing away at the dirt and the grime until the city sparkles, but why not? Why not treat your cities like your home? I don't understand why other people don't see it that way. There's a lot of LA hats on these people's heads, but do you really love your home if you just take your soft drink and just chuck it at a bin, miss, and then walk away or drive off? Is it really LA if you can't even see it through the smog and the smoke and I don't know. It's something that I think about because I have a new month coming up. And every month I say, I hate LA. I want to get out of here. I want to get out of East LA. And after being a victim of a hate crime twice because of this neighborhood, I can't live here another month. So at the end of the month, I got to pack up and go somewhere. But I don't want to move to a shelter because a shelter is it's too stressful for someone like me. So I have to depend on my fans of this podcast. Go into my description. There's my Patreon there, and there's my change.org. And if you go to older podcasts that I have, the other episodes, there are other change.org petitions that need your signature, because your signature can change the world around you. People think that you elect a person and then your civic duty, your civic responsibility is over. That's just where it begins. This whole day, I was thinking to myself, well, what am I going to talk about on today's podcast? What am I going to talk about? And I started thinking about The Matrix, mostly because I always wear leather gear. And I saw Keanu Reeves in Fortnite. I played Fortnite. I don't get that game. I don't. I did the hotel room sequence. I have no idea what that was. I have no clue what that is. It's not for me. It's not designed for me. I don't have to play that game. It's just not for me. But it did make me think about the nature of reality and the nature of things that we accept as true. The scene that I want to talk about is the scene where Neo has just come out of the machine pod and he's having his first meal. His first meal out of the machine pod. It is disgusting, watery oatmeal. It's gray, it's not even seasoned. It tastes terrible, but it's nourishing. It gives you energy. Maybe not as much energy as a better meal would have, but the idea that food has to be pretty colors and food has to be sweet or really spicy in order to get people to eat it. somehow damages us. It has to be really salty for you to get your kids to eat it. That's a big problem. I put in the description my petition for change.org/save American students. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about in that petition is the idea that there's always freedom of choice, but sometimes freedom of choice does need some help. So I suggested that there be one vending machine, just one, on a school campus that is filled with healthy alternatives and is absolutely free. So if a kid is hungry, didn't have lunch, didn't have breakfast, or maybe just wants something in between, they can go to that vending machine and they don't need to use money. It is free food. Whatever that is, like, here, have a banana, have a fresh apple. But we need to get into kids' heads that no matter how poor you are, no matter what struggle you're going through in life, please eat, and eat well. Make better decisions with your nutrition, as I, clearly eat pizza, or at least whatever form of pizza this is, because this is a mess. It's Canadian mess, though. This food comes from Canada. No cholesterol. It's all right. I don't think people in America understand what it means to be a child, what it means to grow up. I think people go through that process and they just ignore what is going on. I remember when I was young and I was going through puberty and my body was stretching out, my body was, going to be taller than it was before previously, and my bones ached, my bones hurt during this process. And even with my intellect, I didn't say to myself, dude, you need to drink more milk. You need to have more calcium, you need to have more protein, you need to eat more food. Because I was skinny and I liked being skinny and I liked not eating. And I was on reduced fare for lunch. I had free lunch. But even with the free lunch, sometimes they would have food that I just didn't want to eat. So I would go without. So I was missing meals, actually. But I look back at that now and I look at that situation and say, there always should have been an alternative. There always should have been something else that I could have used for sustenance to grow, because my brain was growing, my body was growing, and I didn't have enough nutrients in order to grow properly, which is why I'm probably a lot shorter than I should be. I think kids in America need to have someone in their corner who understands physiologically what is happening with them. Understands that they need more food to be available if they need it. They need more sleep. conditioning our children to wake up at 8 o'clock and go through the most boring classes so that when they are older, they can get up at 8 o'clock and sit in an office and do the most boring work is a terrible way to run a country. That's not how our bodies work. That's not how children are supposed to grow. Children are supposed to sleep, sleep more. I'm gonna have to do a separate petition just for that, but I don't agree that Americans should be forcing their kids to get up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning for some of them, have breakfast at a time which is not good for their bodies, and then go on a bus, and then travel all the way to a school, and then start their classes when their brains and their bodies are telling them to be asleep. I think they should listen to their bodies. I think that if they really want to learn, they should learn when they're most alert, and that schools should start giving home questionnaires and say to the kid and their parent, when is a good time for your child to learn? What kind of lifestyle do they live? And what is going on in their home life that they're exhausted? Because children are exhausted. And when they're younger, like 1 or 2, you understand that. You understand that and you're patient with it, and you say, okay, let's take a nap. Nap time. And somehow when it comes to school, it's no, you don't get to take naps. You don't get to recharge your body so you are fresh and alert. You are, in a sense, deprived of sleep. You're deprived of rest and the mental recovery that it takes to face another day. Some of these kids, they're dealing with sports that are taxing on their body. They're dealing with social interactions which are just draining of the mind. Bullying is something that happens in American schools, and we don't have a sure solution of it because we don't want to talk about it as an issue. Because if we talk about it as an issue, we have to say it's complicated because it's something between kids, it's something that adults teach kids, it's something that schools allow by not having enough security and safe places that kids can report these kinds of incidents. And also, kids aren't taught to defend themselves properly. And not all defense is physical. A hate crime was committed against me, and there were ample opportunities for me to retaliate and defend myself while going on the attack in order to defend myself. But I said no. No. What I want is to present to the police a picture that clearly shows what the assailant looked like, and I want due process of the law. I don't want to take it upon myself to dispense justice. I should always defend my own life, but once you take it to that level, you don't go backwards from that. You go forward. And plus, I don't know that person's background, and even though I was being assaulted, and I will never forgive that community, having your father alive but in jail is better than having your father killed because he tried to assault a person and that person defended themselves. I still think my life has value, but the issue of being assaulted goes beyond just two people fighting one another. It goes to the heart of what this city is about. After my podcast, I hopped on X and I started talking about how Pedro Pascal, trans lives are always here and always will be. I'm paraphrasing. It's a forgettable quote because that quote is just Hollywood saying that's a big issue. Let's talk about it, but not really doing anything about it. Because Hollywood's solution to the LGBTQ crisis has always been, if you don't like how you're being treated by your community, why don't you just be one of us? Why don't you just be an actor, a singer, somebody in the entertainment business? You could be a writer, you could do this, you could be a PA, production assistant. And look, you're in this business and nobody cares anymore. Not everybody wants that. Some people just want to be regular people. Some people understand that you can be Hollywood, but you can't be Hollywood everywhere. You can be Hollywood on that red carpet, but you can't be Hollywood in East Los Angeles. I stare at my dresses and my Scottish kilt, and I bought that with the understanding that I would wear that when I'm going west, away from East Los Angeles, because nobody for the most part gives a shit if you're west of downtown LA. But I stopped wearing that. I stopped being myself, which is sad. Because I didn't come to Los Angeles to shove myself into a closet. I came to Los Angeles because I realized that I break a lot of molds, and I thought that by coming here, I would find more people like myself. And instead of finding people like myself, the Department of Veteran Affairs stuck me in this neighborhood pretty much with the idea of, you're brown, why don't you live where the brown people are? Instead of saying, no, you're a LGBTQ person, you should live where LGBTQ people have their own neighborhood. Not that I want to live in a ghetto, but if that's the alternative to being assaulted for being transgender, then bring on the gays and lesbians as neighbors. Because you have to say, what was LACTA thinking when they approved this? I mean, they can improve the physical building and say, oh, it's a room, it has 4 walls and plumbing, but it's another to say that area is just a space that commits hate crimes against LGBTQ people. So therefore, it is uninhabitable by LGBTQ people. But they don't think that way. For them, it's, we're taking people and we're taking them off the streets. It's like, really? Because I go to Hollywood, I go to Brentwood, I go to Beverly Hills, I still see for rent signs that are just up and nobody's going for it. And all I can think is, Well, somebody could live there. A veteran could probably live there. Hi, Jaden. Hi. Thank you for asking. I'm enjoying my Canadian pizza substitute. Ah, still delicious. Gross to look at, but still delicious. This end of the week is going to come, and I look around and I see an apartment. I see my lovely plants that I have grown. I've nourished. I've watched them bloom and put up new branches, and maybe it is because I am First Nation Native American that I feel something for plants and animals. I feel a guardianship, a kinship that I feel that it's really important to be in balance with things. And there's an ecosystem here that it's very peaceful. It's very, and of course, Jaden, I'm not ignoring what you're saying. Um, I'm really sorry to hear that. By all means, call the police, speak to a professional, speak to a lawyer, see what you can do. You shouldn't have to suffer that alone. Make sure that you're talking to adults in your life that you can trust and can guide you through this difficult time. I don't mind throwing out the majority of my stuff that I've accumulated over these 3 years, because most of it is cheap plastic stuff that I can either buy again because it's not one of a kind. It's not really that necessary. Pots and pans, I can just pots and pans I can just replace. I don't have to really concern myself with cooking in a place that I don't want to live in anymore. By leaving here, by throwing out almost everything, I am going through a cathartic process of recognizing my own value and saying that I value my safety, I value my happiness, because this apartment building has just been abuse. It's been abuse since I've got here. This is why I've been hesitant to go through the process with LACTA to even get a new apartment, because I'm just tired of being abused. And that is something that I need to speak to my lawyers and really do something about, because I'm being abused by California. and fighting some bigot on a train platform is not going to make me feel better. What will make me feel better is seeing LA Metro in court and having them explain on record why it is that they allow transgender people to be attacked, because they don't have functioning call buttons for security. They don't have LA sheriffs in the East Los Angeles area on platform. That's what I want. If you want change in this world, you have to be willing to change yourself, and you have to be willing to fight. But recognize who you're really fighting. That asshole who assaulted me, he's not my enemy. He's a loser, but he's not my enemy. My enemy is the system that put me out of my apartment building, but before that, put me in this apartment building. So I will be fighting you, Los Angeles, fighting you in court. I may have one outfit to wear, which will be my increasingly stinky Miles Morales Spider-Man outfit, as I get rid of the majority, if not all, of my clothes. But I will see you in court, Los Angeles, for hate crimes against the LGBTQ. I will see you, Los Angeles, about how you treat veterans in America. And I'll see you in court tomorrow. And doesn't that feel better? All right, I'm going to consider that the podcast for the day. I'm Ian Iliana, environmentalist, human rights activist, LGBTQIA champion. If you are interested in anything I have to say about environmentalism or changing the Institute of American Education, please check out my description or the past descriptions that I have in previous podcasts. This is I Hate LA. Love me anyway. I'm your host, Ian Iliana. Have a good day.